Again, this sounds really bad. This is probably the most controversial part of this whole video. Hello, welcome back to Classics with a Quirk, where I talk about contemporary and luxury designer items and brands with a touch of silliness. If this is the kind of content you find interesting, please do like this video and subscribe for more of it. Thank you. Forgot this part. How fast can I say my intro? Am I on a mission now? The question of the day is the Birkin a status symbol? Now, I've been seeing these videos pop up all over YouTube for the last several weeks, so I'm a little late to the game, and I will apologize now. I don't actually know who started this who started asking this question. I don't know, but if I find out, I'll link the channel in the video, the original one, down below, but I don't know where it started. I just have been seeing these videos around about, is the Birkin a status symbol? And then different people in the luxury and in not the luxury community answering that question. And I don't necessarily feel like my voice is any more important than anybody else's voice, absolutely not. And everybody is entitled to their own opinion, obviously, but I thought that it would be fun to kind of discuss and have another little chatty video about this topic. And so, as always, I would love to hear you add your thoughts to the discussion by putting a comment down below and sharing your opinions. And now I'm going to go ahead and share mine. And I mean, I think a lot of people have answered the question this way, which is kinda yes, kinda no, it depends, it depends. I think, okay, so I just want to start out by saying that the idea of status is a little bit loosey-goosey to me, because it can mean, status can mean somebody that is very wealthy or very rich and powerful or has something over other people. And it can also be somebody that you admire as having some sort of cool thing, or is somebody you aspire to be, or aspirational. So there's status based on power, a power, whether that power is wealth or position or whatever. So it's status of power. And then there's status of, the aspirational, that's super cool. I want to be that, or I want to be like that, two different places. And so I think in both cases, the Birkin can be considered a status symbol, because it is in some cases, and I like the picture of wealth. It's the idea of wealth, or especially it used to be. That has been changing a little bit now, especially with social media. More people are buying Birkins and Kellys. More people are sharing their Hermes stories or Hermes journeys or their Hermes unboxings on YouTube. And some of these people who are unboxing Hermes Birkins aren't the upper elite, very wealthy, very high status people. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that there are people who are unboxing Birkins who are not gazillionaires or billionaires. They're 100,000aires or something. They're well off enough, or even middle class. So the idea of the Birkin being considered a status symbol in terms of just wealth, I think that that's a little bit tricky, because you have a celebrity, having a Birkin, and that is a symbol of wealth, obviously, and status, or it's a flex, it's a flex. But then you have the average person who doesn't have a huge social media presence or something having a Birkin, and they're not necessarily flexing because they don't care about that. They just have the bag because maybe they love it. It's for them. People buy these very expensive items for different reasons, and I think there's a divide, in the same way that there's a divide of status because you have power over people, and status because people are interested in what you have achieved. There's also the difference and divide of people who buy Birkins to flex and show off their power and money and wealth and status, versus people who buy Birkins because they love Hermes craftsmanship and they have been loyal to the brand for a really long time, or they love the design, or they think Jane Birkin is really cool. There are different reasons to buy a Birkin. I'm going to be a little bit all over the place in this chatty video, so hopefully you'll bear with me. But that's kind of what I want to touch on first, is that there are different reasons that people buy Birkins. So for the people who buy Birkins specifically for the flex, those whole group of people, the Birkin is a status symbol, because they're buying the Birkin for flexing within the group of people who consider it a flex. Does that make sense? So the people, say there's 100,000 people, and 100,000 people all think the Birkin is a flex, and then the social media influencer, whoever buys the Birkin, those 100,000 people are like, that's an obvious cool status symbol because they think it's a flex. They think it's a status symbol. So obviously it's going to be, right? You know, it's a matter of perspective. If you consider it a status symbol, obviously it's going to be a status symbol. Yes, sure, by all means. But if you have a Birkin, right, and you go to a place where no one knows what a Birkin is, then it's not a status symbol because nobody knows what that bag is. They don't look at it and go, oh, that person is wealthy, or oh, that person has connections, or oh, that person did something cool, or you know, nobody is going to look at the bag and think something about the carrier, something about the owner. So it can't be a status symbol in that situation because nobody cares. And if nobody cares, there's no status, because status is what other people think. What other people think about you or the person in question is what makes it status. Like a person with a bazillion, grillion, trillion dollars who doesn't do anything with the money and just is wealthy for the sake of being wealthy doesn't necessarily have status because nobody knows or cares. They just like live in a box, and you know, nobody knows that they have money. They don't necessarily have, they have money, but they might not have status if they don't use the money to get into places that requires the money or requires if they don't use it for anything, the status doesn't exist. Same thing with, say, like with a book. If you have a book and it's a bestseller, everybody knows it's a bestseller, cool, great, that's awesome status. If you have a book that doesn't sell anything, but it's a great book, even if it's a great book, if it doesn't sell any copies, it's technically not a good book. That sounds really bad. Okay, if you have the Iliad, right? The Iliad, it's a classic. It's many people agree that the Iliad is like an amazing, the best book. Like, not the best, like it's a good book, right? It's the Iliad. Of course it's the Iliad. So if you have the Iliad and no one reads it, no one has ever read it, no one will read it, the next 1,000 years no one knows what the Iliad is, then it almost doesn't matter that it's such a good story because no one is reading it, no one's consuming it, no one cares. So the status that it has as the Iliad, it's now like, oh, it's the Iliad, like what's the big deal, you know, like that's kind of how I think about the Birkin sometimes in the realm of status. If people know what the Birkin is and consider it a Birkin, yeah, having it gives you status maybe. But if nobody knows what it is or nobody cares, then like what is, like, it doesn't matter. If like 15 people in a group all have a Birkin, does it matter to those 15 people that they have Birkins? Or is that just kind of like their uniform? It's not status necessarily, it's just like what they're expected to have because they're at a certain level of people, certain level of society, I guess. You know, if that's all what everybody is wearing, then does it cease to be the desired specific thing in that group? But for the people not in that group who are like watching that group on TV, yes, amazing, they all have Birkins, that's cool, that's status. I'm not sure how well my point is coming across today. If it helps, I've been talking for a while in other avenues and trying to make my creative brain work, but I wanted to kind of talk about this in its raw form without planning it, because that's sort of how I wanted to express how I felt in terms of the Birkin. Because the next thing I want to talk about is, why do people consider the Birkin a status symbol? Why do people want to own the Birkin? Do people want to own the Birkin because it's a status symbol? Or do they want to own the Birkin because of the craftsmanship? And again, this sounds really bad. This is probably the most controversial part of this whole video. But the people who buy Birkins saying that it's for the craftsmanship could be buying other things. If you want the Hermes craftsmanship, there are other bags to buy besides the Birkin. Let me explain. The first Hermes bag was made in like 1922, something like that, like 1920s, like very early 1920s, the first Hermes bag. And we've had a variety of older Hermes bag styles between the creation of the first one in the 1920s and the Birkin in 1984, including the Kelly. The Kelly came out in, I believe, 1930 something, and it wasn't called the Kelly. It was renamed the Kelly in the 1960s after Grace Kelly, but it came out in the 1930s. So if you want a bag that really embodies the craftsmanship of Hermes, why not look into a vintage Kelly? Or if you want a bag that really embodies the craftsmanship of Hermes, why don't you go for a Sac ring or a Sac Vasco? Why do you need to get a Birkin that arguably hasn't been even around for that long? You can get a Sac Vasco from the 40s or the 50s that are still in beautiful shape and beautiful condition and probably cost less than a Birkin on the pre-loved market. But people want the Birkin. Why do people want the Birkin and not like the Sac Vasco? It's because it's a Birkin, It's because it's the Birkin that has the Jane Birkin history and has the status of being a Birkin. There are people who want that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that it makes sense to consider why a person wants the Birkin as opposed to, say, the Kelly. The Kelly isn't considered a status symbol in the same way a Birkin is, but the Kelly has been around longer. It's still a quota bag. It's still a dream bag. It's still a bag that is handmade. And obviously it's a bag that's got the history of Hermes to it. And it even has a celebrity history attached to it in terms of Grace Kelly. So why isn't the Kelly the status symbol bag in the same way the Birkin is? I'm not saying that Kelly isn't a status symbol bag. I'm just saying that right now it's the Birkin that's the it bag. Why do people want the Birkin so badly? Why are the people who maybe don't have a history with Hermes, and this sounds really, again, just judgmental, very controversial, so I'm sorry if it comes across as looking down on these people. I'm not looking down on these people, but I do think that it's just something to take into consideration. So, you've got a person who's just getting into Hermes. They've never really, they don't know about the brand, or they haven't learned about the brand. They don't necessarily know the leathers or the colors, or they don't know the history of the bags. Fine, whatever. They don't know. That's okay. They just got into it because maybe the bags look cool, or they've heard about it on the internet. Like, all those are perfectly valid reasons to get into a brand, obviously. But they don't know about Hermes, so they pick the Birkin because everybody talks about the Birkin as this amazing thing, and they hear about the quality, so it must have great quality. Everybody talks about the quality, everybody raves. So they want to get the Birkin, and then they buy the Birkin, and they're like, it's beautiful, it's such good quality, it's amazing, the craftsmanship. But if they don't have any connection to Hermes and don't have any history to Hermes and don't actually know about necessarily Hermes craftsmanship because they've never experienced it before, or they don't have a lot of experience with that type of handmade leather good, then why do they think it's so great? Why is the Birkin so great to this person who doesn't have a background in Hermes, besides the fact that it's a Birkin? They could be interested in a variety of different bags also by Hermes. They could be, the Lindsay is a handmade bag with impeccable craftsmanship. The Constance is a handmade bag with impeccable craftsmanship. There are these bags that exist that aren't the it bag in the way the Birkin is, so they care about it a lot less. The people care about it a lot less. I guess my point on this particular note is that there are people who like the Birkin because it's a Birkin. They say that it's because of the craftsmanship, but they could get the craftsmanship in a different bag. But they want the craftsmanship because it's also a Birkin, So for those people, is the Birkin a status symbol? Yes, it is. Because they wouldn't want the bag if it weren't a Birkin. Because it's important and good and worth the money and worth the craftsmanship because it's a Birkin. It's not necessarily that it's a Birkin so you get the status. It's more that you get the status because it's a Birkin. I don't know if I've expressed myself the best in this particular video, but I hope that I did at least kind of touch on some topics that I think were not mentioned by a lot of people in this discussion. And I know that my thoughts were kind of all over the place. This is going to be a beast to edit, so I apologize in advance. But yeah, I wanted to talk about just, if you like Hermes and you like the craftsmanship of Hermes and you have a history with Hermes and you've been buying it or you know about it, whatever, then the Hermes Birkin is important to you for those reasons. But if you want the bag because you've heard about it on the internet or because you want to experience the craftsmanship, but only in the Birkin because it's your dream bag. I don't know what that means in terms of status. I guess you know what, the whole thing is, the Birkin is a status symbol. If you buy the bag and you can't show it to anybody, you just own it because it's yours and it sits on your shelf and you love it, and that's what it means to you in terms of status, then you know what? The Birkin is a status symbol because no one else has to know. It's just important to you, right? But if you buy the Birkin because it's a flex, because you want to show off, or you want to like have the it bag, or whatever the reason is that involves other people staring at it and then making an assumption or a judgment, positive or negative, on the user because of the bag being a Birkin, then yes, it's also a status symbol. It's just a status symbol for the showing off flex purpose. And I'm going to reiterate by saying nothing wrong with that. Like, we're people, we like shiny things, and we are also like peacocks. We like showing off our stuff. It's fun. You enjoy, you get enjoyment out of sharing your love with other people. So it doesn't really matter what that means or how you do it. I guess if you're buying the Birkin to make other people feel bad, that's not great, but I don't know, like, sure, do whatever. If you want to spend $10,000 or $20,000 because you want to make other people feel not great, that's silly. But okay, spend your money. If you're spending $20,000 because you love the bag so much, also great. Like, less silly, spend your money. If you're spending $20,000 because you just have $20,000 lying around, spend your money. Like, This was a bit of an all-over video. I don't know if I'm actually going to release it, but if I do, I hope that you enjoyed watching it, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. Please be kind, because I don't know how well I did this time, but I really would like to hear your opinions on whether or not the Birkin is a status symbol. To you or to other people, like what would make it a status symbol if you don't consider it one, or just, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, please do give it a like. It super duper helps the algorithm, and subscribe for more content that helps the algorithm even more. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for sticking around to the end of this particular chaotic video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.